Let's talk about how to successfully manage multiple projects at once. Whether you work or work outside the home or not, we all are living very busy lives and have so many different things competing for our time and attention. And it is really hard to know what to prioritize and where to really put our energy, our precious focus, in order to get everything done, right? Because we can't just snap our fingers and have everything done at once. We want to be making sure that we don't drop the ball and miss important projects, miss deadlines, right? But at the same time, there are only so many hours in a day. Trying to juggle those multiple projects is super stressful because we often don't have tons of time for it, and we might be trying to go back and forth. We need to get into the right headspace, switching between the projects, which is shown to be so hard for productivity. And more than anything, it can be easy to lose track of where you were on any one thing if you leave it and set it down to go work on something else. There are two broad ways that you can approach a lot of different projects. The first method is what I call the sequential method. This is where you very clearly and with a lot of intention identify what the very most important thing to do is, and then you literally put your blinders on and you do only that thing from start to finish, focusing your fully devoted time and attention on just doing that thing. So, in theory, this is a really ideal method because it allows us to get as efficient as possible with, staying in the cognitive space we need to be to do the project at hand. The assumption is that you know what the most important thing is. So if you are trying to figure out what to prioritize and what absolutely needs to be done first, I have a couple recommended resources for you. I cannot speak highly enough about the One Thing book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. This is so helpful. I also would point you to some of my prior videos that I have made, and then you can download from the description my free guide on how to pinpoint your priorities. It walks you through this whole process of figuring out which tasks are truly the most important. But once you have identified what that one thing is, what you want to do is then take any and all working time that you have to make sure that you are doing that thing. Ideally, this thing is something that is going to make everything else in your life or in your job, right, easier, or it's going to make a lot of other things obsolete. Maybe by doing this one thing, then other things no longer need to get done, or you can do them faster. So as you're thinking about your one thing, really keep in mind what you can do that will help snowball the rest of your progress. But overarching point is that method number one, the sequential method, is to pick that one thing you are going to do and really do it and only it until it is done. Then you move on to your second most important thing. You do that from start to finish and you keep going. But at any one time, any one work period, any one day, you are taking any and all energy that you have and you are devoting it exclusively to that one thing. The second method is what I call the simultaneous method, and this is personally the one that I have found to work best for me because I do just have a lot of moving parts to my life, and I have deadlines. I have to be making some progress, and if I don't do little bits of progress along the way, then the final deadline will come and it's not something I can do overnight. So if you have projects or ambitions in your life that require you to take big action, you need to maybe implement this method so that you are breaking things down into small component steps and then building up to the final result over time. I have found this method to really be successful. I'm so excited to share it with you. But the challenge that we often run into is that this should not be confused with multitasking. We know that trying to do too much at one time, too many things at the same time, will completely derail our productivity, right? We only have the ability to think about one thing at a time, which is why the one thing, the single method is so great. But when you have lots of projects that you need to be kind of punting forward a little bit at a time, making sure that everything is moving in the right direction, here are 5 very essential tips for making the simultaneous method work. Tip number 1 is to make sure that you have a designated time blocked off for each of your different tasks. Set aside time in your planner where you are going to be doing exclusively that one thing, at least for whatever time you can devote to it. So in this way, we're kind of borrowing from the first method, but we are working in smaller increments of time, maybe half an hour if that's all you can afford, right? Just anything and everything you can do to at least make some progress a little bit every day. You want to make sure and try and be consistent in when you are doing this thing. So, we all thrive so much better on routine and being regular with the kinds of tasks that we do at specific times so that it becomes habit. We kind of cue ourselves about what we should be doing at any given time. To make that possible, the second thing you need to do is make sure that you are breaking up the big overarching project that needs to get done into all its very bite-sized little action steps, the specific tasks and to-do list items that you can then put into your calendar and actually feel like you are able to cross that thing off from start to finish in your allotted time block. So it takes a little bit of practice to get good at this, but it's the process of reverse engineering where you need to be with where you are starting from. What are all the little milestones you need to hit along the way? And then how can you break those sub-steps down into even smaller examples, even smaller things? The point is, again, that in order to be successful, you need to have very clear marching orders. You're gonna hear me talk about this in so many videos, but you need to start your day with that concrete plan of exactly what you are going to achieve, what has to be done. And to be successful at this needs to be really small, very clear steps that you can do. You can realistically cross those items off your list in the time that you have. Step number 3 is something that has made a tremendous difference in my life, and I don't know how I ever got by without this. I guess I do know, right? And I messed up. I had a lot of struggles and failures because I wasn't doing this for the longest time. But one of the successful components of juggling multiple projects at once is to make sure that when you finish working on something during that time block, you take the last 5 minutes of work time and you quickly write yourself a note of what your next steps were going to be. If you could continue to work on this project at this time, what would you do? Give yourself clues about where you were headed so that the next time you come back to work on it, you easily know where to start and you can just pick back up without having to rack your brain and think about what you were doing or what you were supposed to be doing. This has been invaluable for me because so often I will start a project and I'll make good headway and then maybe my kids will get sick or I will get really busy with exams and teaching and grading and things like that. And it will be a couple of weeks or a month or who knows until I'm able to come back to that project. I used to lose so much time trying to reestablish where I left off. And now I know that at the bottom of my page or in my planner, wherever you keep your notes, you make those specific lists for yourself of what your next steps are going to be. And I promise you, it makes such a difference. Tip number 4 is to make sure that you delegate out anything and everything that you can. In order to successfully manage multiple projects, we do need to make choices. We can't do it all, and we shouldn't do it all. There might be very real things that would be better done by someone else, or things that you can pass off in order to lighten your load and enable you to focus more productively on the things that really do matter. So whether this is delegating out specific parts of that bigger project, whether it is asking for help around the house so that you have more time to be able to focus on whatever you need to do, right? Think about who you can recruit to help manage these different projects and do different aspects of everything that needs to get done. Then tip number 5 for how to be successful with the simultaneous method is that you have to hold yourself accountable. You've got to make sure that you are really continuing to make progress on all of these different projects. Otherwise, something will fall through the cracks, and you've probably experienced how miserable this is somewhere along the way. In order to make sure that you are pushing every little thing forward a little bit at a time, right? That you're doing a little bit for this and a little bit for this and a little bit for this, and then everything is moving down the road, getting closer to completion, you've got to have a good accountability system in place. Now, there are lots of different ways to hold yourself accountable, and many of us thrive under different systems of accountability. So you might be someone who's very self-disciplined. You might be someone that thrives on social accountability and you need to check in with someone else. You might benefit from habit tracking or tracking your own progress, whether that is by hand or with a habit tracker. And there are many other ways that you can hold yourself accountable or get accountability from someone else. But knowing that there is a real cost for inaction, a penalty for not completing the tasks that you need to be doing, that has really helped in terms of making sure that you stay, you keep up with everything you are trying to do. All right, I hope that you found all of these tips helpful. Let me know in the comments whether you have, successfully managed multiple projects yourself, or if you have been on that end of feeling like a failure because you have so much to do and you just didn't know how you were going to get it all done. And I would love for you to also shout out in the comments with any other tips or recommendations you have for getting a lot of things done and trying to, keep up with all these different areas of our lives. I thank you for being here. Please subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you. And now jump straight into these other videos to get more of my top time management and productivity tips. See you soon.